So Laganja, I'm Saul Mundinger, is Dr. Ashley DeLeon. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. We'd love to hear about where you are in your transition, understanding that every patient's journey is unique. And we'd love to hear about what surgical procedures you might be interested in, either now or in the future.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank you again for your time today. I really do appreciate it. I've learned so much just from talking to you, so this has been really educational, and I appreciate that. For me, I think right now where I'm at in my journey is I'm about to begin HRT, and I feel like that's going to be providing a lot of new information for me, not only mentally, but physically. And so I'd like to give that some time to work and to see, what my results are. I want to say naturally, even though obviously HRT is not natural. But I want to see, what kind of happens with just hormones. That being said, the things that I know bother me, that have bothered me long before my transition, are my hairline for sure. And definitely just the structure, I think, of my face. I think I'm very feminine. So far, I've felt pretty much very passable since coming out. However, I know there are certain features. I don't know what they are, but I know there are certain features that could be feminized. Earlier when you had mentioned like a lip lift, I'm like, I really don't think I have an interest in that. I feel like that sounds so Barbie doll Los Angeles, and I don't want that. I want to be Julia Roberts. I want to be natural. I want to be stunning. I want to be very as close to what I look like now as possible because I feel beautiful as myself. I would just like to accentuate that, right? So like my Adam's apple, I don't feel like really protrudes at all. So that's not something that I'm super concerned on. My nose, I think, is very cylindrical and beautiful. I don't really see much there. I feel like probably what I'm looking at is the jaw. But again, I don't want it to be so shaved down that now I look like a Bratz doll. Do you know what I mean? I want to just be sort of naturally, I believe, more rounded as opposed to this kind of angular jaw that I have now. I think there's definitely something that needs to happen with the forehead, whether that's lowering of the hairline, the transplants, although it sounds like I can't afford that, or the shaving of the brow bone. Maybe even you were saying something about the bone over here and how that gets shaved down to create roundness. Maybe that's something, that I would be interested in. But again, like I said, just so you know where I'm at in my transition, I do want to go on the hormones. I do want to give myself some time to allow those, to do what they do. But I do feel ultimately, especially because I am older, 33, it's not going to be as drastic as maybe I'm looking for. So that's kind of where I'm at, kind of what I'm, really interested in. Eventually, I would love to get what I believe they call as a Brazilian butt lift, which is where they take fat from my abdomen and put that into, the sides of my hips and my buttocks. Definitely something I'm interested in. I don't know if I have enough weight to do that, though. I'm a pretty slender person, although quarantine was severe. So I have some extra loving there, but I don't know if that's quite enough, Again, I also know I'm going to gain weight on the hormones. So I'm wondering if, while I'm gaining the weight and hating that, I can keep telling myself, but you're going to get this sucked out and put it into your butt, and that might help me with the weight gain. I don't know. But again, these are just kind of where I'm at and some common questions I have.
Yeah, no, I think that's all great. We didn't really talk much about body, but it's very common that patients want fat injected into their buttocks, into their lateral thighs, and we typically inject a lot of fat, and you do need to have enough there to be able to do that effectively. You can still do it, but it may not give you the result in your mind that you want or that you think you're going to achieve.
Is there like a poundage? Is there like a certain amount?
No, it really depends on just your body habitus. And without seeing your belly, seeing your inner thighs, everybody carries their weight differently. And if you have fat in your body, I promise you I can get it out with a liposuction cannula. It just depends where that fat is.
And now, I believe I've been told of this correctly, but I want to make sure. When you have something like this done, that fat that is then transferred will eventually disintegrate or dissipate, right? It doesn't keep its volume.
It does. So we think that about 50 to 40% of the fat that actually gets transferred survives. And that fat that survives behaves just like it does before it's been transferred. And it's interesting, patients who tend to carry their weight in their belly, if you transfer that fat into their butt and they gain and lose weight, they preferentially will gain and lose weight in their butt because those fat cells still respond like they did in the place where they were transferred from. So yeah, I mean, I think just looking at you would probably need to have some more weight to actually have a big, butt lift or big fat injection. And again, whether or not that's worth it to you to try to gain weight, I do have some patients that do that. And again, stepping back, what you've said about being on hormones, we are completely in line with that. And we follow WPATH criteria, World Professional Association of Transgender Health. And you do need to give it some time on hormones, and that's one of the reasons why they have that time requirement, which can be frustrating for some patients for certain procedures, but for things like butt lifting and particularly soft tissue procedures on the face, nipples we talked about, you will notice changes in those structures being on hormones. Mm-hmm. And you'll also notice a point where they plateau and that change really kind of slows down. Right. So yeah, I mean, your face, I agree with you. I think you have a very feminine nose. You have very nice eyes. You have very full lips. You also wear a lot of makeup. And
well, I actually wear less than this normally, but yes. Yes, I do wear a lot of makeup in my day-to-day life.
Some patients want an easier application of upper eyeliner, and you can help that by removing this bone. Other patients don't wear a lot of makeup. They want to look like a more feminine version of themselves without makeup.
And that is what I want. Ultimately, I'd like to put on a tube of chapstick and a little highlight and call it a day.
And my goal with facial feminization surgery is for you to look like yourself, but look like a more feminine version of yourself with changes that have happened to your face that you can't quite put your finger on. People that may have not seen you in 3 months will notice a difference, but they can't tell exactly what it is that's different about you.
That sounds very much in alignment with what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah. Right. I don't think you need anything done with your thyroid cartilage. Some patients, even though you can't see it, they can feel it and it bothers them.
I mean, no, it's so, no.
I think, you have full cheekbones. I think your lower face is a little bit wide. I think you have some extra fat that's here. So we talk about doing a fat removal that has the effect of, just like removing the bones here, of kind of narrowing this portion of your face, giving it a more heart shape.
And that would be more feminine, huh?
Yeah, it would be more feminine.
To lose shape in here.
To lose fat right here. Yep.
Interesting. And so how is that done?
So that's done through a very small incision on the inside of your mouth. And the incisions I use to make the bone removal on your jaw are all through the inside of your mouth as well.
And what does recovery look like for that? I mean, my God, shaving a bone, that can't be an easy recovery.
It's actually a lot less painful than you would think.
Really?
The biggest thing is that, like Ashley talked about with vaginoplasty, it being a dependent position, this part of your face, everything in your face drains down here. So there's a lot of swelling that happens here that can take, honestly, up to a year before it really is completely gone. The biggest issue people have with kind of any of the bony procedures on the face is the swelling. And it's actually very predictable. Most patients come out of surgery, that first day, they actually feel okay. They're not that swollen. It's the second day after surgery when the swelling really peaks that patients tend to have the roughest time. That swelling usually dissipates within the first 2 days, and your discomfort really correlates with how swollen your face is. The forehead, once you get over that peak 2 day of swelling, it actually basically looks the way it's going to look, minus a little bit of extra swelling. That's not true.
That's the shaving of the forehead, right?
Yeah. It's not true for the mandible. The mandible stays swollen way longer than any other place in your face. If I could pick one procedure for trans women, it would be working on the bones of the forehead and the upper orbit. And the reason I say that is because evolutionarily we are designed to read people's faces as male or female. And the biggest determinant of what makes a face read as feminine is the structure of the forehead and the upper eye sockets. And there have actually been good anthropomorphic studies that prove that.
That's why I wear a bang.
Right, and I ask patients that, how do you style your hair? Are you wearing bangs? All those things come into play, especially when we're talking about forehead advancement, hairline.
But my dream is to be able to pull it back in a ponytail, like I said, no makeup, a little chapstick, and some highlight on the lid. That's the dream.
Yep. And so not only that with the forehead, but the variability that our brains tolerate is very narrow for faces that read as feminine. It's not true for faces that read as male. There's a much broader range of what reads as male than what reads as female. And the majority of that is centered in the forehead region.
And when you say the orbital ridge reduction or a brow shave, does that also include the soft tissue of a brow lift, or is that separate?
So no, that's all together. So you can imagine reducing bone here, because things are undersurface have been removed. You have more laxity to your scalp. So I need to lift your brows up at minimum to get them on the new position of your bony ridge, so that they're off of the ridge and up higher on your forehead. So
That just look crazy? Like you just changed my face, or no, you think it looks natural?
no, it looks very natural.
Very natural.
Very natural.
Looks like a beautiful arch.
Yep. Very natural.
Oh, I can't wait. Although I kind of can, because it just sounds like, so scary to me. Truly, it does sound very scary.
It's the bony work that I do on the face. It's very involved, high level surgery.
I like that word, involved. Not intense, it's involved. Yes.
It's involved. But I think it's really the answer for a lot of issues that many trans women face, and it does correct those problems.
And I do feel like my girlfriend had the one surgery where they moved the scalp down, and then she was unhappy, and that's when she had the plugs put in on top of. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, and that's my biggest issue with hairline advancement. I think you really have to be very dissatisfied with your hairline to accept the possibility of this scar not healing well. It's a very noticeable part of your face.
Yeah, she hated it. She's like, you can see my scar.
You don't realize how much people look at your hairline until you have a big scar that's there. So at minimum, you have to deal with it while that scar is healing as is expected, which can take up to a year before that scar is completely mature. It goes through a very predictable series of phases where it's red, the redness fades to pink. There can be some hair loss right at that incision, and you have to deal with that. Once you get to that year mark, I would argue that probably 20 to 30% of people end up with a bad scar that is permanently noticeable, and it's a big problem. So we talked about risk and accepting risk. That's my biggest issue with hairline advancement.
Can I ask
yeah,
a question?
of course.
Sorry. So also, it seems like with hairline advancement, we only get like what? Centimeter? 2 centimeters?
Centimeter and a half, maybe 2 centimeters. You're
Right.
very aggressive.
To move it forward?
Compared to what you can do with hair.
That's it? All that trouble for that?
Oh, and the other thing is,
So basically, I need to get rich and get hair implants.
the other thing is,
See? Dr. Ashley keeps it real. Oh my God, you guys. It's too much.
you have a nerve here and here that gives sensation to your scalp, and that nerve innervates your scalp up to about here. So I'm cutting it prematurely, so you end up with a bald patch from about here to here on your scalp as well. And some people are like, oh, it's not a big deal. You can imagine every time you brush your hair, you can't feel the front part of your hair when you're styling it. I strongly believe that hair transplantation is the answer. Unfortunately, like everything else, risk benefit, cost reward, it's very expensive and very time consuming.
Okay, well, I got a lot more to save up for, it sounds like. Well, you guys, I really want to thank you for today. I truly feel like I learned so much, and I just want to say again, thank you for allowing me to do this from the comfort of my own space. I feel like this is such an amazing opportunity that you guys are providing over at the Crane Center, and I'm really excited to get to know you both better, to continue our talks, and figure out, what the next steps are.
No, likewise, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been awesome
Absolutely.
talking to you. Thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as we like to say in Texas, yeehaw, y'all!
Perfect. And then let's do the intro one more time because I want to make sure we have it on the